all around us. Now, right now, we believe that these structures are purely instinctually driven, that there is no communication being made by them. But we also thought a few years ago that chimpanzees didn't have emotions and fish didn't feel pain. So the fact that animals are creating things of beauty that are designed to be appreciated by other members of their species seems to imply to me that the foundation of artwork is there across multiple species. The best way I can describe this is that if you were to show a dog our cave art, our dog would probably think it's just a series of scribbles. A dog may not be able to interpret what we've done as artwork. And to that same effect, I would argue that we as human beings may not be able to look at the animal kingdom and interpret what they're doing as artwork because we're not able to connect to it. There is a disconnect in terms of our ability to understand, number one, why those creations were made, and number two, what their meanings are. So the idea that artwork is uniquely human, I would argue, cannot be true because many animals create objects of beauty that may have meanings beyond which we can understand at this point. It was only recently that we discovered that honeybees do an elaborate dance to communicate the position of food and the direction of food. Well, dance is a form of art, and it's also a form of communication. Does that mean that the dances that bees do count as artwork? I don't see why it wouldn't. In the insect kingdom, most communication happens through chemicals. So the fact that bees evolved a way to essentially do interpretive dance is kind of remarkable if you think about it. So if it's not artwork, what else could it be? Well, for the absolute longest time, the tiebreaker was always tools. That we as Homo sapiens were the only creatures alive that used and fashioned tools. And that was always the big deal when it came to Homo sapiens. That was always the big thing for us. Because we believed it, and because we believed it to be special to us, we never saw it anywhere else in the animal kingdom. Surprise, surprise, it turns out animals use tools all the time. Many forms of primates have been seen using tools, using stones, using sticks, and actually fashioning tools, actually creating tools for the purpose of completing a specific task. It could be as simple as smashing a nut open. It could be as simple as using it as a weapon. Ravens, for example, are extraordinarily bright and have been known to use things like sticks, to use things such as pebbles, to solve relatively complex problems in order to retrieve food, in order to save a mate, in order to escape a locked cage. So the idea that we are the only ones that use tools isn't the answer either. Now, there were those that swore up and down that one of the things that truly made us human was the idea that we're able to, for lack of a better term, read each other's minds. We were conscious of each other's thoughts, even if we didn't say them out loud. So the best example I can think of is, do you know when you look at someone and you can just tell they're sad, or you can tell they're worried, or you can tell they're stressed? They haven't said anything to you, but just the look on their face, you're able to interpret, you're able to tell that there's something in this person's mind. Many, many scientists said this is what made us human. Well, again, no surprise. Quartz Magazine, an article called What Makes Us Human, written by Michael Tabb, May 25th, 2017. To quote the article, "It's no surprise that humans and many types of monkeys have a lot in common. We're both social creatures and share about 93% of our DNA. But when scientists from the Rockefeller University peeked inside 4 rhesus monkeys' brains with an fMRI machine, they were still surprised to find something that only ever encountered in humans: a unique choreography of brain activity which activates when the monkeys are processing social interactions." The human brain is an extraordinarily complex machine. And one of the things that we're discovering is that we have sort of hardwired pathways for certain functions. Language is a great example of them. There are certain parts of your brain that are hardwired to do things like figure out the tense of a word. Is it in the past? Is it in the present? Is it in the future? There's certain parts of your brain that interpret written language, help your brain understand how to then pronounce that word, which is why some people with strokes can read just fine, but they can't read out loud what they're looking at. Others can speak just fine, but if you show them written material, wouldn't be able to read the material because the specific parts of the brains dedicated to those functions are damaged. Well, in this case, there's a function within our brain that we thought we only had that relates to processing how social interactions are going down, what is happening in a group dynamic, what other people are thinking. Well, it turns out that some of our cousins had the exact same hardwiring themselves. That feature doesn't make us uniquely human because other animals have it. And I guarantee you, if rhesus monkeys have them, the chimpanzees probably do, as well as a whole host of other primates. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with the original question, what makes us human? All the things that we thought made us special don't. Animals feel pain. Animals feel emotion. They feel joy. They laugh. Animals have extraordinarily complex social structures that we thought for the longest time only existed with Homo sapiens. Animals use tools. Animals cooperate. Animals are intelligent. Animals can communicate. Animals can count. There are actually plants in the animal kingdom that have been shown to actually do basic math as part of their survival mechanism. So if you remove all the things that for thousands of years we thought made us special, what are we left with? Well, to me, there's only two things that truly make us human, not just Homo sapien. They are two things that are in many ways complete opposites from each other. The first thing is the capacity for humans to feel a broad sense of empathy. That is something to me that is uniquely human. No other animal really seems to do that. No other animal is able to express empathy at such a high level. And to me, empathy is one of those critical cornerstones of humanity. If you do not have empathy, I sincerely do not believe you are a human being. You may be a Homo sapien. You may have the genetic makeup of our species. But I don't think the word human should be applied to you because, again, to me, human is something greater. Human is something we achieve by hard work and by hard effort. It's not something you're born into. Human beings are something that require effort. They require work. They require patience to build and to grow and to work on all our foibles, to overcome all the natural instincts that teach us sometimes to do the worst to each other. Empathy is an extraordinarily powerful emotion because when you've developed that sense of empathy, you are able to override the worst that we have to offer. In one of my podcasts, I talked about the reptile brain and how the reptile brain is trying to kill you. Well, if the reptile brain is trying to kill you, your empathy is trying to save you. Not just that, but your empathy is trying to save everyone else around you as well. Empathy is what helps move armies around the world to help people. It's what helps people become missionaries because they want to devote their life to saving other people. It's what convinces people to rush into a burning building to rescue others. It's what convinces people to donate a kidney or donate a liver or donate their blood. It's what compels us to move mountains if we have to save lives. Lots of animals actually wage war. Many different species of animals wage war. That's not what's unique about it. What's unique about it are that human beings are the only ones that have peacekeepers. Human beings are the only ones that will walk into an armed conflict unarmed and put themselves between two warring factions and sit down and say, I'm not going to leave here until you guys decide on a peace plan. That's empathy. And that to me is what makes us human. That to me is what separates us from Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens that are unable to feel empathy are not human. Homo sapiens that are unable to feel empathy should not be allowed to vote, should not be guaranteed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because those things are not given to any other animal on the planet. Those things are given to humans because only a human being that has the ability to understand and appreciate and empathize with fellow human beings can ever be trusted to make decisions, can ever be trusted to wield power, can ever be trusted to take their own lives in their hands. Because we can then trust them to know that they're not going to do something stupid that's going to jeopardize the lives of everyone else around them. The other thing that I think makes us uniquely human is for human beings then to rationalize themselves out of an empathic state. So what do I mean by that? Vox.com, July 19th, 2017, an article written by Brian Resnick. To quote from the article, "Why do we ignore mass atrocities? There are now 65.3 million people displaced from their homes worldwide. It's an all-time high, likely the largest population of refugees and asylum seekers in human history." To continue quoting from the article, "It's not surprising why political leaders often turn a blind eye towards refugees or grow a callous heart when it comes to the hundreds of thousands of undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as children. When numbers simply can't convey the cost, there's an infuriating paradox at play. It's called psychic numbing." Now, the article goes on to talk about a gentleman called Paul Slovic. Paul Slovic was one of the key researchers who defined a unique psychological human trait called psychic numbing. And psychic numbing is something that we all suffer from. And psychic numbing is one of those things that makes us truly human. Psychic numbing is what convinces us that a massive problem isn't a problem, or that maybe a problem will go away if we ignore it, or maybe the suffering that others feel really isn't as large as you think it is. It's lying to ourselves. It's pretending that the pain that we feel and the hurt that we feel isn't really there. It's an abstract. If you maybe sleep on it, it'll go away. To quote Wikipedia on psychic numbing, "Psychic numbing is a tendency for individuals or societies to withdraw attention from past experiences that were traumatic or from future threats that are perceived to have massive consequences but low probability. Psychic numbing can be a response to threats as diverse as financial and economic collapse, the risk of nuclear weapon detonations, pandemics, and global warming. Almost all animals have the ability to deceive others. Almost all animals in the animal kingdom have the ability to lie, depending on how broadly you define lying. But only human beings are able to lie to themselves. Only human beings are able to lie to themselves about the reality around them. And that's what makes rationalization, and that's what makes psychic numbing so profound to me when you put it up against empathy. Because empathy, to me, almost by definition means the unavoidable reality of whatever situation you're looking at, that you open your heart to it and you allow your heart to feel what that situation requires you to feel at that time. Psychic numbing is the complete opposite of that. It is the shutting down of your emotional systems so that you don't respond to the problem, so you don't think about the problem. You could not get more human than those two things, than the ability to both have supreme empathy and the weakness to have your brain turn off because your feelings are too strong about the situation. Because the trauma you're witnessing or you've even experienced is so great that you'd rather simply not process it, that you'd rather simply not deal with it, that it would be better to lie to yourself and convince yourself that the problem isn't there. When you look at the world and you wonder why there's so much suffering and you wonder why there's so much despair, and you look at the leaders and go, why haven't you guys moved and done anything? It's not necessarily that they're bad people. It's that they haven't figured out yet how to let their empathy override their psychic numbing, how to let their empathy do away with their psychic numbing to help people around them. I can live with a human being who is empathic but suffers occasionally from psychic numbing, but I cannot call you a human being if you have psychic numbing without empathy. Because psychic numbing without empathy is just a fucked up Homo sapien. Empathy with psychic numbing is just a human being struggling to do the right thing. And like I said before, to me, being a human being is something you have to struggle with, is something you have to struggle towards, is something you have to strive to achieve. It's not something you're born with. It's something you have to work hard on every single